Let's do it.
Welcome to the Freelancers Podcast. Thanks for listening and watching. Today I am joined by a good friend of mine, a former coworker, and a UX consultant, Jon Robinson. Jon, did I say that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So a UX consultant. I realized about an hour ago I've never said that out loud. I've only seen it written. And I've said it that way in my head, so I was a little nervous about,
He checked it.
Is it an UX consultant?
Yeah. He checked the phonetic spelling with me.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
So Jon, thanks for being here. It's great to see you. We were hoping to do this in person a few weeks ago. You were going to be here in town for a speaking gig, but it got canceled due to the coronavirus and all of the other stuff going on. So I appreciate you making the time for me.
Thanks,
on it's rainy up here, a rainy Wednesday evening to chat. But Jon, let's go ahead and start off. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Jon Robinson, excuse me. I am based in St. Louis and been doing the UX consultant thing for a while. I worked for creative agencies for a long time, about 10 years overall. Then about 2 years ago, I made the switch specifically or strictly to UX design, more working in like agile product development. But my background really, and which is why only reason that I would like go this far back, because you and I are talking about it. Honestly, I thought I was going to go into college to study communications. Mm-hmm. I know that you've taught right in the past.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be a broadcaster at the time, and which is really weird, right? Yeah. Growing up around St. Louis, guys like Jack Buck and Bob Costas were kind of like heroes around here, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that sportscasting thing, and I think I was hanging around the announcer booth at like freshman football games in high school. I started goofing around on the PA, and somebody decided to let me start calling games and things like that or whatever, right? So I got this idea in my head, and I think a guidance counselor straightened me out. He was like,
as they do.
It was like, you're pretty good at art. Have you thought about art? And I was like, yeah, you're right. I should just do art. And that's kind of how I ended up doing what I do now.
Cool. And we see a lot of your artwork behind you in the video.
Yeah, well, some of it.
Yeah.
I'm a big Shepard Fairey fan, so I got a lot of Shepard Fairey.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And that was the Godzilla movie you directed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right?
I was the second unit director.
Yeah.
I had a few pickup shots. Yeah,
that's a good one. Jon, you do UX consulting now. How did you get started, doing this freelancing? Maybe walk us through, kind of your background from that. Someone told you, hey, have you thought about art, to, maybe where you are now? Let's, bridge that gap a little bit for us.
Sure. Yeah, no, a lot to say there, honestly. So in design, like freelancing is just part of the industry, really. We come out of design school realizing we probably have no idea what the hell we're doing and that we need experience. So we figure like, well, I'll just freelance. It's as simple as that, right? Without really knowing what that means for the most part. Yeah. And so, you think like, I'll tell people I'm a designer and people will probably need some design. So they'll pay me to design some stuff, and that's how it'll go.
And you'll set your own schedule and
yeah. Like, hey, I'll work for myself. Right. Yeah. But it hits you. There's like that period where you're close to graduation. You don't have any job offers, or you really have no idea what you're doing, or you haven't really tried yet. And you think you can just go into business for yourself. But it's like, you can't really tell me the average kid coming out of art school knows anything about business. Right. So as far as like, my background, I went to art school, studied graphic design. I worked for a local print shop for a while, and I did like 3-year stint at a not-for-profit. I worked in higher education marketing for a while, which is where we used to work together. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to St. Louis.
That's where we got our Patagonia sweaters.
Yes, we joined the Patagonia Club. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
And so I worked at a creative agency in St. Louis for about 4 years, and now I'm in the user experience consultant thing. Leading product development for like Fortune 500 companies, right? Cool. And it's like a super long way from that print shop where I got started, but I've always done the freelancing thing. I've done some pretty cool projects along the way, but I don't really have a schedule that supports it much any longer. So my freelancing is a little different now. When I started working with entrepreneurs, that was like where I kind of found, I feel like, my niche in freelancing space, right? Because I got really excited about helping people get their ideas off the ground. And so like my freelancing opportunities for a while ranged everything from like t-shirts, like designing t-shirts as a side hustle, designing, developing apps and websites, and even publishing children's books.
Yeah.
And so websites were really where I found, it was kind of that service where I found a niche for myself. For a short time, I became like the guy in my business circle that could get a quality site up and running in like a pretty short period of time at a decent price. And but the maintenance killed me, man. I never really attempted a business model where I could like support clients long term in that.
Yeah.
Because I think I was a little entrepreneurial minded myself. I just wanted to launch a project and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I got antsy and I just wanted to keep going. So I didn't want to, I don't know. That's for me, it's freelancing has always been kind of like find a cool project, find a cool opportunity, dig into that thing, get it done, and look for the next cool opportunity, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, I really, honestly, I think that's the essence of freelancing. Like if you were going to stick with projects forever, that's a full-time job.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, like that's what that is. And I love repeat clients. I love, I've been working multiple years on certain projects. One of the local TEDx talks I've been filming for years, and I love doing it, but I don't want to do that full time. I want the next new project. I want something that, whether it challenges me or, gives me a boost up in some way or introduces me to a new person or a new niche. I totally get it. You don't want to get stagnant because that's like an immediate death of your freelance business.
Sure. Yeah. You don't grow doing the same thing all the time.
Absolutely.
You grow new stuff. But honestly, like two of my favorite freelance projects were both probably ones that I made almost no or little money off of.
Yeah.
The first app I designed was one of them because I got to do it with a friend, and it opened up like this new field to me. So without that one project, I probably wouldn't have like gone in this direction of user experience design full time. And really it was like this kind of whole like refocus, I feel like, in my career, where I realized that it was just so vastly different, but also in some way like somewhat related to what I had already been doing. But it was just like such a different approach and such a different skill set that I knew it was just legitimately like what I wanted to do from now on.
Yeah.
But the second was this children's book that I helped publish back in like 2015, 2016. And the contact was through a mutual friend. The guy worked out at Facebook in New York. And so he flew me out to spend a few days with him in Brooklyn. We worked at the Facebook office in Manhattan. So I got like this cool experience / story out of it, free trip and all that. Right.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was like, I never made a cent off that project. And usually for me, those are sometimes the ones that are the most fun. And it was like the right thing at the right time for the most part, because the story was like super empowering to young girls. And my wife and I, like a week before I talked to this guy, just found out we were having a daughter at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no way I was going to turn this project down.
Yeah.
And I figured like, if nothing else, I'll be able to show this, I'll have this thing and I'll be able to show it to my kids someday and say, Daddy made this. And they'll be like super proud and they'll see that as special,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. I knew that you had done that book. And I don't think I had any of those details about it, but that's one of those things where some of my favorite projects are those ones that you recoup just enough to break even on them, or, or you shell out a little, you're like, I guess I'll shell out a little bit of my own money for this one. Because they are, they don't give you anything in the short term, financially speaking, but that pays dividends later on.
Yeah.
Getting you into something new or expanding your horizons. And I try to, once a year, every couple of years, try to do something like that, stepping outside of my comfort zone to do a cool project. And the further into my business I get, the harder that is to do, because I have to like go, oh, well, I could make X amount this week, or I could, do this fun passion project that I want to do. But yeah, that's a cool story, man. You have to, is that book title, and is that book readily available? Can you give it a plug at
Yeah,
all?
yeah,
Is that a
it's
thing?
available. Yeah, you mean to do the whole
What's the,
PSA?
yeah. What's the title? Where can we find this book at?
Yes, it's available at all of your local Amazon.coms. It's called Rachel's Dreams and Hats.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I think it's like $9.99. It's actually a really cool little story.
Nice.
The gist of it is little girl has like an imagination where she puts a fireman's hat on, she becomes a fireman. She puts a police officer's hat on, she's a police officer.
Cool.
So the story is essentially like you can be whatever you want to be.
Yeah, which is, I mean, probably even more important now for young women, and to see, and get that and see representation of themselves. So that's cool, man.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a cool project.
Like I said, I knew about that book. I didn't know any of the other details. You've had a pretty good career, progressing. I don't want to say bouncing around, but progressing to where you are now. How have you branched out and kind of diversified what you do, over the years?
Yeah, well, we were talking about teaching earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I've been doing for a while now. I've been teaching for like 6.5 years or something like that. And really it's more like it took me a while to realize why I was actually drawn to that. Like I was drawn to teaching because sharing knowledge with others also helps me learn.
Yeah.
Right. And now I'm driven by this idea that we learn better when we do it together. So for the last, last year, like early 2019 or so, I started speaking at conferences, things like that. Probably given like 10 conference talks in like a 15-month period. With the shutdown going on right now, right? We were just talking about the one I was supposed to be at when we were going to get together and do this. Like most of them going virtual, and then a lot of them canceling even. So the opportunities are a little limited, but I'm hoping to get back to that soon. But really, like I consider myself probably just as much as my full-time job as like a UX designer or creative director or whatever. I consider myself a design educator just as much. And I think that's really, there's a lot of teaching that happens in consulting. All right. The biggest difference between what I do now versus what I did before in the agency world is that, and from my opinion, I no longer work for my clients. I work with my clients.
Yeah.
I don't build things for people. I build things with people. And that's a huge distinction for me. Right. So a big part of my job is like making people's jobs and lives better. And I get an opportunity to work with clients in like these varied industries, solving different problems all the time. So there's a lot of learning that happens there. I don't really see a huge difference between freelancing and consulting.
Right.
The majority of my work these days, like my actual freelance work, is more consulting than anything else. The stuff that I do on the side. Mainly because I don't have time to actually produce things, but I got plenty of time to talk about stuff though, you know, and I'm always up for answering questions about things like app development, because it's like this big, scary thing for someone to have an idea for an app and then literally have no idea what they're getting themselves into, like both financially and time wise.
Yeah.
So I'm always down for that. And I've actually got I don't know if you do any of this, right? But like I've got a colleague that set up this deal where he just charges people for like 1 hour meetings. Just, hey, well, you got questions? Like buy an hour of my time, no more. And I'm going to answer these questions that you have about like creating this new thing, whether it's like a brand or a blog or whatever. Right. But he does it with no commitment to do the work necessarily. Yeah. It's just like Q&A. Yeah. And it's like this like mini Q&A consulting for the most part. Yeah. Have you ever done anything like that?
A little bit, yeah. Great question, man. And thanks for asking me, by the way. I don't, I'm here too. I'm here to talk too. But and Lord knows I can talk. So yeah, a little bit. I've actually been consulting a bunch this week, over the past couple weeks actually, but this week in particular, I've had a lot. As people are migrating to online stuff, online platforms, digital platforms. Yeah. This is something that, people should have been thinking about maybe a little more in the past year and a half, 2 years, than they did. And then they had to change suddenly. Yeah. And lucky for me, I've been doing live streams since you and I worked together essentially, like a decade ago, 8-9 years ago, something like that.
Damn near. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I do multiple a year. I do my own, and things like that. So people have been reaching out, asking about stuff. So I've been doing a little bit of consulting this week, and I've actually, and this is like, I'll just throw this out here. I've been toying with the idea of offering something like this, and like, I'll call it like, I don't know, steal my ideas. Cause like,
yeah,
like I would love to, I mean, as much as I want to produce videos and make videos 24/7, I can't do that right now. And like, let's sit down and chat, and like, I'll give you every feasible idea that I can think of for your specific business based on, my industry knowledge and, what I know about how videos actually perform in the marketplace.
Yeah. But what better way to build trust with somebody though, especially on a first meeting with someone where you're like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm spitballing here some ideas.
Yeah.
Feel free to use all this. You know what I mean? Like, and we do that. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on in the consulting firm that I work for, is that, we don't treat business opportunities as like, oh, hold on, you were going to wait to get a signed like NDA agreement from you or something like that before we move forward on any of this. Like, we're just there to help you out. And that's the primary thing for us is if you end up stealing our ideas, like, we want to work with you.
Yeah.
And we're going to throw stuff out there. And if you end up stealing our ideas and just run off and do the stuff that we thought, like, well, maybe that's okay. Or maybe we didn't want to work together to begin with. Like, maybe we don't want to work with somebody that's going to steal our ideas and not pay us for it. Because go ahead, dude.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, at the end of the day, that cool idea is now out in the world,
Sure.
So like, worst case scenario, I mean, you don't have a client, but like, your idea is out there now,
exactly.
feasibly.
Exactly.
And
what is an idea anymore? Like, there's no such thing as a new idea.
Yeah.
Like, if you really feel it's very few and far between that you ever like hit on something, you go like, oh my God, I just thought of something that no one else has ever thought of.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much every video I've ever made is based off like Looney Tunes or, something just stupid and childish. But I totally get it. And like, that's, how I feel, at the end of the day, I would rather build that trust with someone. And super quick side note related to this entirely is that I get into it with other freelancers, particularly video people, video editors, because, so many people in my industry have this like lockdown on the footage they filmed. And technically, if I get hired to if I get hired to produce an event, the end footage, the end event promo is what I'm hired to produce. All of the footage that I shoot, even if it's of someone else's intellectual property, that footage is all my intellectual property. And people are like, I'm not giving that away. If my client asks for it, I'll tell them to fuck off, or pay me. And I'm like, what good is it doing me sitting on a hard drive?
They're never going to buy it from you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, have all of it. Like, and a lot of times, I mean, I'll give it away for free. I don't, like, I'll be like, hey, buy a hard drive and then reimburse me for, half an hour of my time.
Sure.
And take it, man. I don't care. It does me no good for it to sit and rust, get rusty on a little hard drive somewhere. And
what's the point?
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, if that client trusts me, to do something like that, then they'll probably come back. And if they don't, big whoop, I got, a couple more.
Yeah. No, again, building trust is so much about it, but it goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier about not really supporting clients. Cause I never really tried to develop a model where I did. If you needed a website, my goal was to get you the best website I could get you within the budget that you had and the time frame that you needed it in. But I also I was going to give it to you. Here, this is your thing now. Like, and that was one of the things that a lot of clients could never really understand when we were having those initial conversations. Is they were like, well, how much is it going to cost for maintenance? Nothing.
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost? Like, you're going to have your fees for, your hosting fees and things like that. But I'm not going to be like, I'm going to make this as easy as I can for you. I'm going to give you something that if you don't know how to edit it, like, I'm going to try to teach you a little bit. I'm going to educate you on as much as I can, but you can use Google. You know what I mean? Like there's so much information out there and here, I'll give you some kind of a document you can run off of, but you don't need to come to me and you shouldn't have to come to me to make a change on your website. It's your website.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's a little different for me. I can't say, hey,
go edit this video. Yeah. It's a little different,
but a lot of times I do there are, we have some kind of, I don't want to say consulting, but like retainer packaging, editing packages fees. And included in those is I'll come and show you, and your entire staff, if you want, how to, shoot and edit videos or edit videos, based on what you need. Because again, I want to set them up for success.
Exactly.
And I think that ties into the education aspect too, is like, and it's probably why you and I are both drawn to that aspect of it, because, I've taught for 6 or 7 years too. This is actually the first calendar year I won't have taught any classes in 6 years, 7 years maybe. And yeah, I like that aspect of it. And I just, I just don't see a point in like having such a stranglehold on your expertise and your knowledge only to like let it sit and rot and fester with you because you're like,
I'm going to take all this stuff I know to the grave. Like, what? That doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, what the fuck, for, man? Cool.
It's like,
have fun.
It's like not leaving your passwords for anybody. It's like, oh, I'm dead and my wife can't get into this phone right here.
Yeah, I'll be damned if she's going to see what my Google history is.
Yeah,
tell you, I don't really care.
Only by checking my email, but
I have the most boring life. I don't care. I'll share my internet history with the world right now. I won't. I was looking at weird stuff earlier, but
Yeah, I bet you were. Mostly bikes and shit, probably. Lights.
Yeah, probably.
No. But it goes back to like what we were saying earlier about the time, right? Like the consulting as a freelance service.
Yeah.
And, that stuff like that does great strides for our industry because it stresses that the work, whether it's the design work, the video production, the shooting, the editing, whatever, like that's knowledge work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It stresses the idea that that's knowledge work. That's not skilled labor. And our ideas and our expertise provide the real value. It's not always that like, oh, I shot this video, I edited this video, here's your video. That's not the real value, but it's what you added to it specifically yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what brain power went into that.
Yeah.
And so it also like emphasizes that our time is just as valuable as the things that we create.
Yeah, I totally agree. And at the end of the day, like I want to make stuff. And then if I can't make it myself, I want to watch people make stuff and I want to be a part of that process. It's, the most amazing thing in the world to me is to be able to like create things and, and do those sort of things. So it's cool. I really like that insight onto the consulting freelancing kind of overlap and how that, how they relate to each other. Let's talk about, maybe working with clients, whether it's finding your first one or if you've got any really good hot gossip on like working with a difficult client.
Okay, hot take time.
Do. Yeah.
I cracked my backup beer.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
There
I got a sour.
Nice. Berry Noir. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That sounds like one that they would like almost make up on like 30 Rock or something.
Yes.
Yeah,
most of
like I'm drinking a
the Roger.
Yeah. I'm drinking a Bach beer. And it is an Aldi brand one, Breckenbach.
I've heard that's good. Yeah, I've heard that.
My wife and I shop at Aldi's all the time. Jordan and I shop at Aldi's, and their beer is delicious. I actually prefer they have a Blue Moon like knockoff. Yeah, it's better than
private
Blue
label,
Moon, frankly.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And I'm waiting for them to get their hard alcohol here in the States.
Oh yeah, they've got like the really good Scotch or whiskey, right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's like award-winning, like top notch. So
yeah.
If anyone wants to ship John and or I a bottle or even
we'll take it.
A thimble.
A crate.
Yeah, crate. It's cool. I'll take it.
Yeah.
So back to the
sanitizer.
Hot. Yeah. A hand sanitizer bottle of it's totally fine. So back to the hot goss on working with clients.
This is a good one. No, I've been waiting for this one because I love to
wait
tell
for years.
I wish we would have done this sooner. No, I love. Okay, this is one of my favorite stories about my career is to tell about my first freelance opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to hear it.
So, and which was actually for like I freelanced for a freelancer. So my first client was a freelancer. So it's already off to a good start, right?
Oh, you sorry son of a bitch.
So back when I was finishing up school, undergrad at Wesleyan in Bloomington, where we used to live, the Eureka company was still headquartered there.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, maybe it was called Electrolux. I know that they went back and forth with name changes for a certain period, right? But then they made like cleaning products and vacuum cleaners.
Vacuums,
and, yeah, industrial. I don't remember what the hell else. And so I shit you not, like I pulled one of those tabs off of a bulletin board, right? Looking for designers. It was like somebody was trying to sell guitar lessons. Yeah, exactly. And reached out to this guy. And then I spent the next few months doing vacuum cleaner illustrations for packaging.
Nice.
Mainly like these individually packed, back when vacuums had bags that you had to replace, right? Like they had the collection bag and then you had to take it out and unzip the back of the vacuum, empty it out and all that, right?
It's really sensual. It's weird, like, it's like really perky bag inside of your,
And so it was like replacement bags, cloths, filters, stuff like that, like all these little like individual parts. So I did these mechanical line drawings that were in like the top left or right corner of the bag, of the actual product bag, so that like you had an idea that you were getting the right thing for the product that you needed to fit or whatever. And this dude really ended up taking advantage of me because I was a young kid at the time, and I ended up getting paid for all the work that I did, basically because I got the courage. Like I worked up the courage to go over to this dude's house and demand that he write me a check. And after that, I just moved on to the next thing. But I remember sitting in my apartment in this like terribly run down little building. So like 5 or 6 years after I graduated college, this whole building was condemned.
Yeah.
Sitting at I had not the first iMac, but the one after that had the ball base with the swivel arm, right? The all white one. Yeah. I just remember there sitting there like for hours, just slaving over these like super intricate, little illustrations of vacuum cleaners, and the dude couldn't even like send me reference materials. I just he'd give me a model number and I'd have to go to Google.
Or you remember what a vacuum looks like,
Yeah. Like it had to be a very specific model. But like most of my business outside of that was always organic. No, that's probably like my bad experience, right? And mostly because I remember going to this dude's house and like walking in, it was like all dark and there was 30 cats like jumping on tables and everything. And here I am, I don't know, 21 years old, and I'm like, you owe me money, man. Like I didn't know how to approach that.
No.
I still don't, mostly everything after that was pretty organic.
I haven't been paid in 6 months. I'm too nervous to ask for paychecks. So I want to talk about organic, this idea of organic clients. So, for me, word of mouth is everything. I can put 100%. hundreds of dollars into ads on Google or, whatever else. I can advertise till my face turns blue or my ears turn red. I don't know what the phrase that I'm looking for is. Yeah, or both.
Like your whole face is purple, maybe.
Yeah, I can't, and so it looks like my head was stuck in a vacuum bag. But it doesn't do anything for me at all. I have never gotten, as far as I know, I've never gotten a client that way. It's always, word of mouth. Where did your organic clients come from? Was it that, or was it, also, did you ever get one from someone seeing a website that you did? Like at the bottom, it'd be like, bye.
I've never had my name on anything, so I don't think so. No, I mean, it was pretty much always like friends of friends or through networking. I think I was a little better at networking than I thought. It was always like networking was like this dirty word to me, but man, you deliver well or you over deliver on stuff, you get a recommendation from that person for the next thing, and usually just kind of steamrolls there. I think it sounds like you and I are probably in the same boat related to that. Like your work probably initially comes from some people that and then they tell somebody else and they tell somebody else, and the word of mouth, just like, it's better than any advertising you can have, as long as you're good at what you do. Like you build trust with your clients. For me, like the only reason I want to do this is because I want to work with people. Right. And I want to work with like good people. And if you're not somebody I'm going to be able to have like a good working relationship with, then let's just go our separate ways. But I totally agree, man. It's like, I can even say that until I moved to St. Louis about 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, something like that, pretty much every job I'd ever gotten was because I knew somebody.
Yeah.
And every job I got after that, I actually even have a presentation on this that I give to students sometimes that are like undergrad and looking, like, how do I find a job? And I have like this whole basically org chart that I created that shows like how I was here and I met this person and they introduced me to this person. And it's like even ties in freelance projects and how a freelance project helped me get a job and all that. It's so much about, it's not who you know. Like, I don't want to make it sound like you have to know the right person to get the thing. No. You just have to, you have to like be a good person. You have to approach your business in a way that shows that you care about the people that you're working with. That you deliver on the things you say you're going to deliver on. And as long as you do those things, then they're probably going to tell their friends or their other people that they work with, you know?
Yeah. And the nice thing about communicators and marketing people is that a lot of them know each other, and feasibly they will move up in their careers, or they will go, you know, like both of us have, go to different companies or different organizations. And then when they go there, they're like, oh, I had this really positive experience with this person.
Sure.
You know, let's bring them in. You know, it's rarely that people are moving downward in their, you know, kind of career ladder. They're usually moving upwards. And with that sort of, you know, attitude and being good at what you do and being a good, like, you know, kind of people person, you know, those projects get better and better, you know, the more your name gets out there. And
of course.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with mentioning that, like, you know, be good at what you do and know that you want to help people ultimately. You know, like, I'm here to make videos, but I'm here to make your video. You know, I'm not here to make mine. I'm not here to make a fucking Adam Ron video. I do that. I make cat videos in my free time. Those are, you know, that's where I get that shit out. I want to make your video, and I want to help people, you know, with their video marketing materials. And I think that's, you know, one of the reasons I probably, clearly I'm not like rolling in dough. You know, I can't even afford to take my bike outside. But I don't know what that means, but you know, I feel like there's a reason that I get contacted by people that have heard of me and have seen my work and stuff. And it's, you know, it's clearly not because of my like strong jawline, or, you know, anything,
or,
you know?
Or your thick beard.
This is my quarantine. This is my quarantine beard, man. Can you tell?
Nice. How long you been working on that?
Yeah, since 2019. It's pretty bad.
No, but what you're saying though is really that you want to do what's right for the client. You're not in this because you know, like, even if you did have a style per se, and every now and then people would hire you to create something the way that you create it, right? Like, that would still happen, but that's not always the best option. Just because a client contacts you and says, I want you to do this the way that you do it, doesn't mean that that's the right thing for that client.
No, it rarely is, frankly. I mean, you know, I would love to use, you know, high-end whatever techniques and cameras and stuff on all these projects, but you know, if their audience is wanting and is using like 20-second social media, you know, snippets or whatever, they might just need some like high-end cell phone, you know, stuff that we could do. So I agree. I think that's a really, really good point, is that even if you do get hired for it, it doesn't always mean that like it needs to be a, you know, you project. In that way.
Well, that's
a good point.
Yeah. I mean, you run into the opposite too. Because sometimes you have like little control over the people who reach out to you. Like, someone reaches out to you for your project and you think they want to work with you in particular, but like, you realize that they just want the work to be done. You know, sometimes they don't care who they're working with. And that's the times when, regardless of like who you are or what the right thing is, sometimes no matter how much like research or knowledge that you can throw at somebody, it's not going to lead them astray, or really, I shouldn't say that. It's not going to lead them away from this logo that they drew on a napkin in a bar at like 2 a.m. or something, right? Like, they have very narrow focus. And they're like, I want you to do it this way. Like, that's not who I am. That's not why I'm here. Right? Like, I am here to give you what you need, not what you want necessarily. And so that's a tough one in a freelance capacity. That's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's essentially like telling your boss no. You know, how often do you do that? And it doesn't get any easier. You know, a lot of times, you know, my approach to that is like, I'll give you some suggestions, and I want to make your video and I make a compelling case for it. But at the end of the day, if you put your foot down and you're like, this is what we're doing, and you're, you know, paying the bills, and I think it's worth it for me to do that project, I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's frustrating. And I've had projects that I thought would be amazing and they've turned out like complete garbage because of that, because it's, I don't want to say someone didn't take my advice and it turned out wrong, because it's certainly not like a my way or the wrong way. It was just
sure
the project did not live up to its potential, maybe is a good way of putting it.
No, totally. But you're right. Like, it's still a business. You got to pay the bills, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you turn down every project from the ones that you knew were going to be pain in the ass clients to work with, or someone that just, was so dead set on doing their thing and didn't really hire you for your, the way you think, then sometimes you still have to take those projects.
Yeah.
And when you're doing it full time.
Yeah.
But one of the things that like we touched on earlier was like a place I never had any luck working for in a freelance capacity was agencies, creative agencies.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's because of the immediacy of everything. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's, but you mentioned that like in those industries, everybody knows everybody, and people like jump, especially here in St. Louis, like even though it's a smaller big city, right? Like everyone at all of the agencies knows each other, and they constantly jump back and forth from location to location. But you don't get anything from them in a freelance capacity until it's like last minute they've realized they're not going to get it done, and they need to pass it off to somebody else because they've made this commitment, but they're not going to be able to handle it, And it's just, I've never been able to work under those super tight deadlines. Like if you need something in a few weeks, if you need something like by the end of the day, I've got a full-time job. It's just, I'm not the person for that.
Yeah. I mean, even, my full-time job, when I'm fully busy is freelancing, and like, I still can't, I've got stuff. Well, right now my schedule's fairly open. I've got, some random stuff coming on, but normally my schedule's booked out for weeks at a time, in the grand scheme of things. And, if you want more than an hour of my time, it's not going to happen.
Sure.
And I get those every once in a while from agencies, or
this is why you don't ever text me anymore.
Yeah. I was texting you the other day.
About this.
Yeah, about this. Come on. Can't say I'm wrong. But I agree. I've never had a lot of luck with agencies either.
Yeah.
And it is, they have like this weird immediacy, and they, I think you also end up with, when I have worked with them, the thing that drove me up a wall was that, the agency itself would have all sorts of feedback.
Yeah.
For me, we'd go through 6-7 rounds of revisions.
And that's before client ever feedback.
And then the client gets it, and then they're like, hey, they're not going to say no to the client. So they're like, we agree with this client that, you need to do a reshoot, on this part of it, or, this whole thing doesn't work. And, the last I worked with one last fall, and it was like, I was getting calls and texts and emails at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they're in my same time zone. It's not some random time zone. And they're like, we really need to get this polished because I got to send this off first thing to the client tomorrow. And I'm like, dude, this is already good. We're moving stuff like a frame here or there. And I've seen the previous work, and I frankly, like, if the client, we'll send it to the client. If they have a problem with it, we'll fix it. But like,
I know.
And it just, it was like 4 or 5 days of that in a row. And I just was like, I will probably be busy if that person calls me again to, to do it. And,
it's a different world, dude. I lived in that world for like 4 years. And honestly, I got burnt out on that kind of stuff. And that's, for me, that was the draw of user experience design, because when you're working with clients, like in a freelance capacity, or I'm sorry, from an agency capacity, there's such pressure to not only like make them happy, but to do it on the first try.
Yep.
Right. And now, I get my feedback from people who are actually using the thing that I'm designing and building. Like if I design something and I got it like 50% correct the first time around, that's pretty good. If I got it like 75% right the first time around, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Because like I can't validate anything that I'm doing, any type of like feature or a full application that I'm designing, until I've actually put it in front of someone or put it in someone's hands, and they've been able to like work with it and say like, yeah, this is exactly what I need, and this does what I need it to do.
Yeah.
And outside of that, like often you're just trying to please people. So for me, man, it was like, that whole idea that there is only one right way to do it, and it has to be perfect from the very first time that you share it with someone, and you have to do your best to please that person and take all of their feedback because the client is king. That's really why I kind of walked away from all that, and now I want to work with people, whether it's in a full-time or a freelance capacity. I want to work with people that are down for having a conversation about stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Like they're hiring me because they like the way my brain works. And if I tell them that there's another way of doing it, they're open to having a discussion about it. And like, I'm not trying to super impress anybody on the first time. I'm not trying to knock it out of the park the first time. It's great if I do, but like, let's work on this together.
Yeah.
I want to bring them into the process.
Yeah.
I've got go ahead, dude.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I have legitimately, like, I wanted to share this story because I've got a colleague that has the absolute best freelance story I've ever heard in my entire life. There's no way I could ever top it. I doubt anybody could.
Hit me with it. I hope it's one of my stories that I told you a couple years ago.
No. So this guy I work with, he's actually writing a book, and part of it, like, he has a whole section. It's more of a section than a chapter, I guess, on freelancing. So he let me read his first draft of it. He was telling me that, like, he was working with a startup. I don't know when this happened, but he's working with a startup as a product designer. And he's told really early on by the founder of this company that the guy started the company because God came to him in a dream and told him that he should start this company, told him that he should build this thing, right? And then shortly after that, this guy brings his pastor on to the company as like his spiritual business advisor. Right. And so
good already.
Yes, it's going well, swimmingly. So one day he is reviewing some designs with the owner of the company, spiritual advisor. And the pastor says, we should change the color of this icon from blue to green, something like that. Right. It's like, change it from whatever. And my friend was like, sure. Would you mind telling me why? And the pastor says, God told me that this icon should be green. Right?
What's your response to that,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, from what I remember, he said something like I only take advice or feedback from people that are actually using the application. Like, it's a little more valuable to me that a human being using this app, would provide me with some feedback, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. This isn't like the fun thoughts and prayers app. This is like the app that people need to fucking use to get whatever done,
Yeah. I have no idea what the product was, but I think till the day I die, that would be my favorite freelancer story that I've ever heard.
Yeah. I can't say that I've ever had anyone claim that, God should do it, but if I ever get anyone that tops that, I'll text you right away for sure.
All right. Yeah. I'll
pass it down the line. Even in the middle of a meeting, I'll say, hold on, I gotta text my buddy John. This is too good. Yeah, I don't know. I've had some asinine requests and stuff, but nothing like that. Normally it's just kind of talking people out of like, no, we don't really need sparkles, or no, it is 2019. We should not have a reference to making it rain. Like, it's not something we should be doing.
My wife right now, I do technology, like whether you're behind on it or outdated on it, it drives me crazy. Like, no matter what the scenario is. My wife is on this business task force right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many, I think there are like 50 different people on this task force. They get together once a week for a conference phone call.
I'm sure that's productive.
Because they're not, like, there's the people that are running it are not tech savvy enough, I guess. Right. And so, they can you imagine being on a phone call with 50 people and then someone's like, does anybody have any thoughts on that?
It just shuts down because they can't handle 50 people talking at once. So I as a freelance video producer, I'm stuck typically working with like local clients or regional clients. I don't travel very far because I've got like cases full of shit. These are like two of my smaller light stands, or they weigh like 20 pounds. what's your experience working with clients that are maybe like not in the same community as you? Because not that you don't need equipment to do what you do or have done, when you were freelancing, but, did you have clients that were like local? Did you have them, were they further away? How did that work? I'm actually just kind of curious because I don't, with you being in a different line of freelance work, I'm kind of curious how that worked.
Sure. No, I've had local clients. I prefer to work with clients that are not local, like not in my area, because I just don't really have time for the face-to-face. Having a full-time job and then freelancing on the side usually means that I'm doing all that work at night. Right. And so sometimes it's difficult to meet client expectations for meeting times when you're in the same vicinity, when you're in the same community or whatever. It's just so much easier to not do it. Like, I definitely recommend like always meet video chat like this as much as you can, and always like present your work too. Try to get that FaceTime with them in a virtual format. But like for me, I've been doing the virtual thing for a while, so I've got a decent amount of experience of working remotely already as it is. I would much rather, I think, if I had to choose between the two, right? Like, I'd much rather work with people that are not local. For me, it's easier to avoid the pro bono work requests.
Oh yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Like, if someone contacts me that's like out on the East Coast or something, they're most likely not going to ask me to do this because I have no vested interest in their community or their business necessarily. And like, yeah, I still want to get ingrained in their business in general. But like, I completed a project recently, well, maybe a year ago, for a local not for profit here, and they wanted to pay me with a board seat on the organization. Right? And I had no like vested interest whatsoever in this org, and I'm sure it's great, but like, I don't need a board seat to like, make my resume better or like to increase my status in the community or anything like that. I want to be paid for the work that I did. And it doesn't mean that I'm not all for donating for the right cause. But again, like we talked about earlier, it's still business and my time's valuable. And like, hey, I need to be paid for this thing that I did.
Yeah.
So that I like the fact that I avoid those requests for, can you do this for free? Or would you just want to be a partner in my company and share profits when it's not local? It just doesn't seem to happen as often.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think I prefer having local clients, but I also like, again, my thing's a little different where I can like, it's hard for me to like travel and fly and like take all this extra time for that to go out somewhere and film. I also like seeing, my videos or, my whatever content out there, on someone's Facebook. And I'm like, oh, I go to that coffee shop, or, I've been to the comic book store, or, whatever the case is. I will say though, if I had a nickel for every time someone asked me to do something for free, pro bono or like exposure, I would probably be able to hire someone to email them every time they ask and say, get lost, and like, I try to do stuff on occasion, for causes that I care about, or, organizations that I want to see succeed and help and stuff, but it is really tough. I never thought of it, I guess, critically in that way, that I do get a lot of those, and it's because they're like, this would be really good for our community, and we know that you're really involved, because I've been on like, I know you're on a board now, and I was on the library board in a previous town for a while, and I'm involved in some other community organizations and stuff, and so I do get that pro bono ask pretty regularly for stuff, and it's usually never like a small project either. It's always like a
big lift. Yeah,
it's like a $4,000 project. And I'm like, it's a sizable chunk of my income.
It is. It is. Yeah, for small stuff, like that's one of the reasons I joined my library foundation board is like, I want to support their need for increasing technology at the library, or working on like customer experience, making like improving the customer experience, things like that. So if there are some small things that I can do, like set up a usability test for something that they're working on, or help them create some personas for, donor initiatives and things like that. Sure. Like that's a couple hours of my time. I can probably help them get something like that done a lot faster than they do it themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not going to donate a website,
Yeah.
like that's not why I'm there, but I'm there to help. And that's the one way that I can really help. We have a member on our board that is a video producer, and he does all the videos for the library, like pretty much no matter how big or small. I don't think he donates all of them. I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
If anyone from my library board is listening, apologies.
Yeah.
You might be paying for videos now, but
yeah.
There's a difference between me donating to a cause that I believe in or something that's important to me, and me saying like, yeah, sure, I want to work with you, but it doesn't mean I want to work with you bad enough that I'll do it for free necessarily. We've all gotten the exposure, message at some point.
Oh, I know. Like I got even like, a decade in, I still get that, like this would be great exposure. And I'm like, I'm exposed enough, buddy. I don't really.
I've gotten in trouble for exposure too many times.
I know. Yeah. Like, I'm on a list.
No, but like I'll do some client pitches at work through the various, jobs I've had. And I've had people, I've presented projects that are like $100,000, $250,000 projects. And then they'll just be like, would you consider doing this pro bono?
Yeah.
So it happens everywhere. I mean, it really doesn't matter what the price is. You're still gonna run into that sometimes.
Yeah. Which I mean, honestly, like, I think that there is something to be said, and I'm going to eventually end up probably making like 4 whole videos on, doing stuff for free or pro bono because there's so much to say about it. But like early on, like I almost had to do some stuff for free,
Sure.
And that client, you get them into a dark alley and you like hold a knife against their throat and you swear them to secrecy on what they paid you, which was nothing. Yeah. And then the next client that sees that, you can be like, oh yeah, I did that video for like $500 or $250 or whatever whatever paltry amount it is, and you build up from there. But at a certain point, it's just it happens in every price range. I mean, it happens in my price range, which I wish I could double what I charge for videos. But I'm also like, I'm at a point where I can't even imagine having been here 10 years ago when I started freelancing. So, I mean, it happens in all the different price ranges. And like I said, it happens in a $250,000 plus price range too. So it's just like, it's a whole thing. But
I mean, and two, because you're reminding me about those days of getting started in this and having no idea what I should charge or what I was going to charge for a project, or even like having the courage to even let that come out of my mouth. Like, answer that question. How much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
Like I'm still not confident enough to say it. And I remember times when I was doing something for the Children's Museum in Bloomington, and it was like some kind of an illustration that they needed, and I did it. And the lady was like, "So how much do I owe you for this?" And I said, "Well, somebody told me that I should get like $250 for this." And she was like, "All right. Okay." I was like, yes. I had no idea. I would have taken $10 for it at the time. I didn't know any different.
Yeah. Where it's like, at that point, like 200, you're so nervous to ask for $250.
Yeah.
Your voice squeaks like you're going through puberty, and your hands are shaking, and then, you would have taken anything for it. And now you're like I'm not asking for anything less than $250, to do a project or whatever. But it's funny how that works. I mean, as long as I could afford beer and pizza at the end of a week, I would have I'd shoot a whole wedding for like $400, like 60 hours of work at the end of it, and you're making like no money.
Gas money, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Cool. John, those were all the questions I had for you. Do you have anything else you want to chat about while we got you here? Anything else that we didn't cover that you're interested in? Any other fun client stories?
Oh man. I did, and I might think of another client story. We'll see. Okay. But I did want to say, like, I've always found this really interesting, that think about your branding, right? Like if I had some advice, it would be think about your branding. And I don't mean like your logo or your name, what you're going to call yourself, but more specifically how you present yourself to your clients. If it's the way I feel about it, it's like, I know it's like you and your wife, right? It's the two of you doing your thing together. The way that I kind of see it is like, don't try to fool people to make yourself seem bigger than what you actually are. And I always go back to this story. I don't know if you're familiar with Aaron Draplin of Draplin Design Company. He's kind of like this like big mythical figure in the design world. And he always talks about how his company, Draplin Design Company, whenever he talks about it with clients, he always refers to we. He always calls it we, or talks about we, even though it's just him. Right? Legitimately, like he has somebody else that I think like sells and ships merchandise for him and stuff like that. But when it comes to the actual like work, right? Like whether it's scheduling or managing or anything like that, it's just him. And so I've always kind of felt like, if you want to build trust with clients, don't, no one's confusing you with an agency, right? Like maybe that's something that you could like lean into, right? Like when people come to you, they should know who they're working with. They should have an expectation that like, this is a human being. This is not a whole team of people. And let your passion, let your skill, like not your size, sell you and your services is basically what I'm getting at, right? Like, like don't try to fool anybody, because you're not going to fool anybody.
No, I mean, no one thinks that. I mean, in a heartbeat, someone would see through the fact that like it's me typically, and I hire out other freelancers. And I work. My wife does a lot of work behind the scenes, for the business and helps me out all the time. And I mean, pretty much anything public facing that you see from our business is, her brainchild. But no one in a minute would think that we are like a big agency, with all sorts of resources. But yeah, it's a good point. People put so much stock in regards to the brand. They put so much stock in, the name and the font and the colors and, and their logo and stuff like that. And rather than thinking about themselves, in terms of like, what are the,
what about values?
What about value? What are your values? What can you, in general, like what can you add to a project and what can you do? That's a really good point. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. As someone who has a little black and white robot logo as their branding, I like that a lot.
Well, no. And again, like I'm not talking about
I totally
visual branding in any way, but I have, and I can't remember what the client was or when, like who it was or when it happened, but I did have a client one time that I bid on something and I was bidding against agencies, and they came back and they were like, well, we didn't go with you because your bid was so much lower than the other agencies we were talking to that we figured that you must have just misunderstood the scope of the project. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't have a salary that I need to cover or multiple salaries for that. Like of course my prices are cheaper and you should have expected them to be. But that really taught me a lesson though too, right? Like it always made me question a little bit more. Am I charging what I should be charging for my services, which is something that I constantly reevaluate.
Oh yeah.
But also like, it's important to know who you are competing with.
Yeah.
Certain things, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had instances like that where I had a client, and I've worked with them a little bit on and off through other things actually, but they're from Canada. They have some stuff down here in the Midwest, and they would put out feelers and say, hey, we are doing this project here. What would you charge for this? And I would send them rates, and they would, same thing, where like I was just such small potatoes to them. And what would ultimately end up happening is I would get hired by another person, like another kind of local person who, in a sense presented themselves as an agency, and I would end up making more being hired by this person than I bid for. And I'm like, and it's one of those rare instances where the people go with a higher rate. Essentially, but it's
they assume like higher prices means more value.
Yeah. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, this person had literally the same cameras that I do. They knew less about them. You know, there's all these other, like, the presentation was, you know, they landed these things, but it always left like a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth about the thing. And but, you know, it's, you know, the nature of the business. You run across all sorts of those kind of scenarios. You know,
of course.
When you freelance. And
yeah.
Cool, man. I don't have anything else
Same.
that's on my agenda to chat about. I really, really, truly appreciate you taking you know, some time out on a Wednesday night during your week to time away from the family.
No such thing as weekends anymore.
Yeah, to chat about this sort of stuff. And it was really nice chatting with you and good to catch up.
Yeah, it was good catching up, dude. Thanks.
Jon, before we go, where can people find information about you or contact you, or are you off the grid entirely?
No, I don't have a website anymore. Actually, I took it down about 2 years ago with the intention of like, hey, I'm going to work on this when I have some free time.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that my hosting is lapsed right now. Even I don't even have a paid plan, but I am on Medium.
Sure.
I've been writing a lot, so you can find me. It's J Farrell Studio, J, the letter Farrell, which is my middle name. I tell people like Will Ferrell, but spelled like Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
Studio, and that's an Instagram, Twitter, and Medium. You can find me at that name.
Cool, great. I will.
So best place to check me out.
Cool. I'll be sure to link all that stuff below too. But it's always good to hear from the horse's mouth, as they say. Jon, thanks so much for joining us, and hope you have a wonderful evening. And
you too,
thanks
man.
everyone for watching and listening. And we'll catch you in the next episode.